About time, so why don't we go ahead and get started. So our last speaker of the day for the blue track is Mr. Jeff Murri. I've known Jeff for many years now. Jeff, when we first met, it was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, CSRA Hackers?
Yeah, actually, I think Atlanta BSides.
Maybe.
I think right around then.
So Jeff's a very sharp guy. He's into a whole bunch of things. I think his Twitter feed used to say something like into InfoSec, all of it. So he's into offense, defense, hacking, anything you can name. So he's a very interesting guy. He's got a lot of cool research going on, and he's going to present some of that today. So here to present, is that hardware in your toolkit? Mr. Jeff Murri. Please join me in welcoming him.
Ken, how is everybody doing? Good. Okay. Yeah, you're here. Since I can find them, I brought about 20 face answer boards. If you want to actually solder up your own, you can do that. I'm actually going to suggest to Doug, did you run out already? Okay, there you go. I will forewarn you that, you know what, we live in the allergy capital of the world, and some about like this on the allergy meds right now. But I think we should actually try and have a hardware hacking village.
Sure.
Next year.
You gonna leave it up?
Sorry. I'm all over it. So I sent a tweet out, and you know, it's funny. My pug has more Twitter followers than me. If you go out and you follow Kiddo the Pug, he's got like 4,000 and something followers. I have like maybe 50 or something. But I sent a tweet out that basically, this was about 1.5 years ago, that said that if you are not integrating hardware into your both red team or blue teaming, in a year or two you're going to be behind. And that's basically kind of the focus of this talk. I tried to come up with some kind of humorous thing, you know, is that a dongle in your pocket or you, and then decided, okay, well, I don't know the target audience very well, but so let your mind wander with jokes. As you can see, I am a amateur radio operator, KK4ETK. If you are not into amateur radio and you picture amateur radio folks as people 400 pounds sitting there doing Morse code, you are sorely mistaken as far as the hobby is right now. And then there I am on Twitter. Standard disclaimer, in no way, shape, or form am I speaking for any previous or current employer. That's it. There are, when we get into the SDR piece, there are things that you could go out and listen to on the airwaves that are illegal. They are. And things like listening in on your neighbor's cell or cordless phone, things like that. Yeah, that's kind of shaky these days, I think. So I say shaky because it's up to you. Look it up. The baby monitor that's on next door, that's your thing. So what I want to do is actually chat about some hardware. Specifically, software-defined radios, some hardware exploitation. Specifically, things like using the good FET to go in and actually do JTAG enumeration and try and hack, or let's just say, improve your wireless access point, or improve your Android phone. CAN bus, because everybody needs to tweak their ride, or if you're like me, I go in and about once every couple of weeks, my check engine light comes on. So I went in and I asked the guy, I'm like, okay, what the hell's going on with the light? And he's like, well, it's an oxygen sensor. I'm like, do we need that? Well, you've got 4. I'm like, do I need it? how much is it going to cost me? It's about $150, $200 to fix. I'm like, okay, I don't need it. So actually, how I take advantage of the CAN bus is I go in and I shut my check engine light off every 2 weeks, and I read the codes to make sure that it's not something catastrophic where my car's about ready to bite the dust. We're going to get into some other stuff as far as some USB hacking. And I have the face dancer boards. I don't know what I just did with them. I brought lots and lots of treats to Vanna White as far as different tools that I use. What I have learned, actually, here's the face dancer boards. What I have learned just about USB, and this totally gets out of the hacking realm, but the fact that USB disk access is actually using SCSI on the back end. I mean, how old is SCSI? I mean, I'm old enough to know that you had SCSI device 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The card had to be 0. I see some heads nodding there. Yeah, that's how USB is talking in the back end of your thumb drive. Bonus feature, if we have time, we're going to get into some of these new cool little itty-bitty Unix computers. One was given away earlier, the Raspberry Pi, the Big Bone Black. But this is the goal, and this was the premise of the talk was, I'm cheap. I'm on a limited budget, and that's not my wife. But my wife does say that I have to account for my hobby. So I like to stay below $50 on this stuff. So let's start with software-defined radio, RTL SDR. Any of you watch the Hack 5 podcast videos? They've been doing a great job on that. RTL SDR, and actually if we have time, I'm going to plug this guy in and do it. This guy right here, you can get him for $9 on eBay. Software-defined radio. Specifically, I recommend the New Elect RTL 2832U chip. Essentially what this is in Europe, they came up with these dongles to watch their version of digital TV. So an enterprising gentleman kind of was digging around and going, wow, really, we're just listening to radio, right? It's all RF. So actually came up with this whole RTL SDR concept to where this guy is a software-defined radio. He's got everything hardware-wise that you need other than an antenna to listen to radio, listen to anything going over the airwaves. Specifically what you get is you get this guy and you get this little crappy antenna, which ain't going to do much for you. Mine, unfortunately, I don't like magnets in my laptop bag, so I tore mine up. But this plugs into here, that goes into there. You download SDR Sharp or one of the other applications we're going to go into, and from 30 megahertz and up to about 1.6, you're on the air. Now it's receive only, but the cool thing is that I'm seeing it for $9 on eBay. It's a beautiful thing. I will be posting all these because I have a ton of links. One of the things I hate about watching some talks, and I loved about the last talk, was that, okay, there's 40 minutes of this, and then, kind of the last 10 minutes is a big bang. This is what we did, and that's it. So I have about 15 backup slides that I will be posting with more links, IRC links, things like that. But specifically this site here goes into everything you would ever want to know about these dongles. And there's a ton of them out there. Specifically, these guys, the RTLSDR.com site goes into what to actually look for as far as the chipset, installing software, different software. They have a blog that they update 2-3 times a day sometimes. It's great stuff. Other notables, again, they violate the $49 spending limit, is FunCube Pro, Dongle Pro Plus. The cool thing about this guy is, a ham radio guy like me, I like to go below 30 megahertz. I like HF, the HF spectrum. I like going out and trying to see if I can decode that Stanag stuff where the Russian ships are talking to whoever, or the old RTTY stuff. That stuff's still around. A lot of that is still out there, but it's HF. So the RTL SDR, again, this guy really doesn't go much below 30 megahertz. FunCube Pro Dongle Plus goes 240 kilohertz, or let's see, 150 kilohertz up to 1.9 gigahertz. The issue is there's a gap because of the chip that he used. But it's 125 pounds. So when I was doing these slides last week, that was right around $200. But you get pretty good range there. Who has not heard of the Hack RF at this point? Okay, good. Michael Osman is a stud. I mean, when I grow up, I want to be Mike Osman. I mean, he is awesome. Just in general, just to take what he's done as far as knowledge, and in a short amount of time turned into the RF stud that he is, and hardware stud that he is. It's amazing. So he's got the Hack RF one. It's actually shipping now. Now the thing is the base model is $299, but then you've got other accessories that you'll add. One of them being an up converter, because he does not go down below 10 megahertz. So if you want to go down below 10 megahertz, you'll buy what's called an up converter. Same thing with the RTL SDR dongle. You can buy an up converter that will get you access pretty much down to 2-3 kilohertz. HackRF.newelect.com, that's where he's selling his stuff now. His blog has a ton of information. Very cool thing about the Hack RF and about Michael Osman in general, yes, I'm a fanboy, is that it's all open source. If you want to, you could build your own. I actually have one. I'm aware of one person building one. It's all those SMD parts, so the little itty bitty things that you really can barely see with the naked eye. So I would personally not recommend it, but it is what it is. Okay, the USRP, 70 megahertz to 6 gigahertz. The cool thing about the USRP is that the bandwidth is huge. So you're listening to a huge amount of bandwidth. I'm trying to remember, I think it's 120 megahertz of bandwidth at a time. So if you think about that, what's FM now? It's 80 to 108, roughly, megahertz. So you're listening to more than the FM band. All right there on your screen. You can just bring it all in. Edis.com, these guys were really the ones that kind of, outside of the military, kind of kicked off the whole software-defined radio business or paradigm, I think, if you want to call it that. But it's expensive. I mean, it is expensive. So as far as applications go, yeah, I go both ways. I'm a Windows guy. I'm a Linux guy. I'm not a Mac guy because, again, I'm a budget-minded person. I'm not highfalutin, can't afford a Mac like a lot of you guys. But on Windows, SDR Sharp, which is the one that I use, it's free. So you go out and you buy yourself a $20 dongle, you download SDR Sharp, and you're up and running. It has a crap ton of plugins for it. There's a scanner plugin. There's a plugin to decode ADSB traffic. So you can have your own little air traffic controller setup where you can actually listen to the transponders from the airplanes as they fly across the sky. trying to think. Just there's a ton of plugins. Getting back to here, these guys are again pretty much the authority on all those different plugins. Any of the new plugins that come out, they will blog about them. And last count, there were over 20 different plugins. Everything from a scanner plugin. So just like the old scanners are still around where you want to scan from 100 megahertz to 800 megahertz, and anything that breaks the squelch or basically has something there, you want to know about it, just record it. Kind of like doing a RF version of a war dial. There's a plugin for that one, for SDR Sharp. It was open source. And then what happened is a lot of people started ripping off his code and putting them up on and wrapping it into applications for really, let's just say a cuss word, crappy Kickstarter projects. So he went closed source, but he wrote a really great API, so you can write your own plugins. He's got plug-in source code out there, you can just go crazy. HDSDR, a lot of people actually prefer the interface on HDSDR, and if we have time, and I think we're going to, because we're going pretty quick, we'll bring up SDR Sharp, but it has hooks into a lot of the amateur radio transmission apps, so you can listen via HDSDR, again, via your little $20 dongle, and then have a transmit only, and HDSDR will actually handle all that, the mic inputs and everything for you. So you're essentially, other than the transmission piece and the receive hardware, everything else is being handled via software. And that's really the key thing about software-defined radio, is that all we're really doing is we're just acquiring that signal, and all that signal processing and everything is all happening via software. And with the speed of computers being the way they are, we can do that. I'm doing that with my little Raspberry Pi. He kind of took a header this morning, so he's looking kind of rough. But I have this guy was up in my attic for a while. He has a dongle plugged into him. As part of the RTL SDR suite, it will actually stream the data across the network. So you can have this guy way up, away from all the RF, all the static, or just all the EMF and all that, and then transmit right down your network. So one cool thing about HDSDR though, and somebody hasn't written a plugin for it yet, is scheduling a recording. So you could almost have kind of like your own SDR DVR for if there's particular, I listen to certain programs on NPR, and most of them have the podcast, but in particular, some of them don't. So I have a little Raspberry Pi at home, and and it's streaming over HDSDR, wakes up every once in a while and listens and records the WAV file so I can listen to it later, so I'm making my own podcast. It's not internet stream, it's coming over the airwaves. Try either app, they're both free, whichever one you prefer. Again, I'm going to buzz through this. I think we'll actually maybe have time. The key thing I want to point out is that other than the FunCube Pro, FunCube Dongle Pro Plus, the RTL 2832 dongles show up just as they are. They show up as TV tuners. Well, we don't want them to be a TV tuner. We want them to be a RTL SDR dongle that then an application like SDR Sharp can then turn around and actually decode the information coming in. So an application called Zadig actually allows you to go in and say, hey, nope, you're not an RTL, or you're not a TV tuner anymore, you are a USB device. And then from there, SDR Sharp can pick it up, and you can go from there. With Linux, I haven't really had any issues with the dongles. Again, my Raspberry Pi loves the dongle. There was a joke there, and I said it, and I didn't even realize it, huh? Okay, GNU Radio. It is a beast. It is a beast. But it gets you the closest to the hardware. Getting down to the Edis stuff, that's in the thousands of dollars. Have a good day. The thing is GNU Radio allows you to write specific blocks that do specific things. So essentially, just like if you were to solder up your own radio, that's what these GNU Radio blocks are. Supports pretty much everything. Anything that you possibly can do in the RF world, you can do in GNU Radio. Again, this is just the software side. So we've already received it with our dongle or some type of software-defined radio hardware. The thing is, it's got a hell of a steep learning curve. I bring it up all the time, and I will sit there and play with it for a little while, and then my brain starts kind of hurting a lot, and my ears start leaking, and I'm like, I fire up SDR Sharp on the Windows box, and I'm cooking. But Michael Ossman, if you're here, I would be doing that, has some superb SDR tutorials that he's coming out with. As part of the Kickstarter that he did for HackRF, he promised one of the stretch goals was to come up with a bunch of SDR tutorials, and he's using GNU Radio. Valent, an Australian guy that was the first one to basically map his whole entire airspace and publish it to the internet with software-defined radio. He actually works for Edis now. So again, their devices are thousands of dollars, and they use GNU Radio for the software. So the cool thing is he wrote a bunch of tutorials. So between him and Ossman, they're really making GNU Radio accessible. But again, for the casual user, GNU Radio, again, it's kind of a beast. It does more than I think most people need it to do. Linux and Mac. Oh, and by the way, Linux and Mac. So I know some of you guys are Linux and Mac. I kind of glossed over that. These are Windows only. GNU Radio kind of runs on Windows. Pretty crappy. You have the raw RTL SDR software itself, the original tools that the Osmocon guys came up with. And again, huge props to them. I'm using the RTL TCP to actually stream the data from my Raspberry Pi so that I can receive it on my little Windows box and on my little phone. So they have a wiki out there, and even better is Hack5 has been doing quite a few RTL SDR videos. Now, and in particular, episode 1703, that was a couple of weeks ago, they actually went into some of these command line tools. The cool thing, though, is a gentleman wrote GQRX, which is actually a GUI front end, or it kind of rides on top of GNU Radio. It looks just like SDR Sharp, HDSDR, a lot of the other software tools. So it's very easy to use. Okay, kind of software-defined radio. Really, this is hardware in general. The Ubertooth. How many of you have heard of the Ubertooth? Okay. Bluetooth hacking. Again, Michael Ossman. The thing is there are a lot of hardware tools out there that allow you to sniff Bluetooth. But you are pretty much going to sell your firstborn into white slavery to be able to afford the damn things. And so then Michael Ossman came out with the Ubertooth. and it works. It works great. It is under the software side is under continuous development now. A lot of the Bluetooth low, I'm going to screw this up. Bluetooth low energy. They're writing a lot of software support for that now too. So you got the Bluetooth in your sneakers as you run down the road. You can actually sync that with your Ubertooth now. Great Scott Gadgets is Mike's site, and $119. I buy it from the Half Five store. It's about the cheapest. Plus, I think they kind of deserve your money. Okay, hardware exploration. So Travis Goodspeed. When I grew up, if I can't be Michael Osman, I want to be Travis Goodspeed. I won't. How many of you have seen Travis Goodspeed, or at least videos of Travis Goodspeed? Go out and watch a YouTube of Travis Goodspeed. And I realize these are going to be posted on the internet, so I hope he sees this. Dude has hair. He's got dreads clear down to the top of the crack of his hiney, and they are amazing. And they don't seem to ever change. They're like these huge dread ropes. Travis, good dude. The good bet is now we're switching gears. If I need to hack into a hardware device using something like JTAG, or I need to talk to it via I2C, anything like that, the GoodFed allows me to do that. It's just a USB dongle. Very flexible. You can get PCBs from Travis, or, and this is what I would suggest you do because I built two, is the third one I bought from Adafruit for $49.95. The reason being is my soldering of SMD parts, LED parts, is not really what it should be, and so Adafruit, Lamore does a great job with Adafruit. You can buy it from there. On the CAN bus side, we have the CAN bus shield from SparkFun. I should actually be breaking out some of these and Van Whiteman for you. Bear with me. Okay, this is my little CAN bus shield that I use to turn the check engine light off on my car. Okay, so it does sit on top of an Arduino, but all the code and everything is at skpeng.code.uk, etc. Again, I'll be publishing these. This guy's $39.95. You get a $10 Arduino off of eBay, and then the cable is about $9 from SparkFun. It's the Hoodie BD2, right underneath your dash. Comes right into this guy, and then you're viewing it on an LCD. You can also connect directly in via right here and hit the thing via your laptop, or you can turn around and actually write all the data to an SD card right here. They are continuously upgrading and updating these sketches, and there is the GoodFactor also, which is actually built off the GoodFet that Travis did. I soldered one up and didn't find it as easy to use, and the software wasn't there. The Arduino is just easy to use. How many of you have seen or used an Arduino? Okay. This isn't part of it. I didn't have a slide on this, but this is an Arduino. This is where probably 90% of the makers have gotten their introduction to hardware. This guy is anywhere from $9 to about $30. Depends on whether you buy the official one or you buy the one off eBay. But 5 volts or off of USB, and then you can plug this guy in, and with about 3 lines of code, once you download the IDE, which is free, you have this little LED blinking. But from there, I actually built a little shield that sits on top of this that does Morse code transmission. Again, I'm a legal amateur radio operator, and it's just a beacon that just sits there and sends my call sign out. The whole thing took maybe it was a weekend, and I'm not that great at hardware. And I'm not the PhD electronic stud, but these guys here are very cheap. This is what everybody was using really until the Raspberry Pis came out. Once the Raspberry Pis came out, which how many of you have heard of the Raspberry Pi? Okay. How many of you have a B+? Okay. So, how many of you are going to, or have ran into issues with the B and wanted the B+ instead? Okay. The big thing with the B+ is that it gives you more USB ports. The bad thing is the composite video went away. So the cool little screen that I have doesn't work with it anymore. You know, it's not the RCA type jack anymore.
Yeah, there's a way of doing that audio jack that does both, but I'm not quite sure what cable you need to make that work.
Yeah, from what I've seen, there's a special cable and it does both now. Where before it was separate, so they saved some space. But the cool thing about the Raspberry Pi is that Adafruit just came out with the plans and everything to where you've got a touch TFT display, and then you're using the Raspberry Pi camera, and you're making your own camera. You're writing everything to the SD card. The cool thing about the Raspberry Pi also is that it does boot off an SD card. I've got 4 different SD cards. I've got Kali that boots off one. I've got Arch Linux on one. I've got a special amateur radio distribution that I'm running on the other. And I've got others in various stages of disrepair that I'm working on from time to time. But it boots off a SD card, and it's good stuff. So as far as the Arduino, compared to the Raspberry Pi thing, if you're a Linux person, just spend the money to get a Raspberry Pi. Again, it qualifies, it's under $49. The thing with that I ran into with the Raspberry Pi is that timing, just doing time sensitive, how do I put this? The way it deals with time, and you're going to put these up on the internet, I'm going to get pilloried, but is different. And how you do some of the, it's different. Let's just say that. I'm trying to be careful because I should have said, no, don't put these up. Face dancer. Okay, this thing's awesome. Built off the good vet. Here's mine right here. Cool thing about it is it allows USB devices to be emulated in Python. How many of you have heard of the face dancer? Nobody? Oh, this is awesome. Okay. So essentially what you've got is you've got the target and you've got the host, or essentially the victim. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to write USB endpoints in Python. For example, just a quick demo that I was prepared to do, I brought my Switch and everything, but I don't think we'll have time for it, is actually mounting a ISO file as a USB thumb drive, and then again watching that actual SCSI traffic going back and forth. taking certain devices that normally you would update via USB and actually having this guy in the middle. So if the firmware is encrypted, for instance, or they're doing something funny, you're actually seeing the raw data stream coming across this guy. So this guy's sole purpose in life is essentially to provide a way for you to write a USB device in Python. The cool thing about it too is, and how many of you are Python developers? Okay. Some people were kind of pissy because Travis and a couple of other folks rewrote everything into Python 3 classes. So, but the classes are out there. And again, I love this thing. If you go back and you look at my Twitter feed, I just have been just having a hell of a time. A ton of fun. The thing is the native tools that Travis came up with, a guy named Andy Davis, there's actually a DEF CON talk on it, and a Black Hat Asia talk on it. He wrote a tool called UMap that actually makes the face dancer even easier to use, and so I would encourage you to go out and look at that. And then Brad's got a GitHub repo out there to where he's got some scripts that helps with some of the data that you can capture via the face dancer and iterates it out, and does a very nice job. So when I was digging around trying to figure out the face dancer to begin with, I did have some problems finding some examples. So the Google eventually did start coming up with some good links and things like that. Here's some very good ones here. You can build it for $49, or you can buy the face dancer for $149. Again, I'll give you the board or the parts. The parts are actually the link off of this site here for the parts. You can build your own. Okay, so I was prepared to actually then get in and start talking about Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone, all these other little mini computers, but if you want, we can see if my SDR demo works. Okay, so again, $20. Plug this guy in. I couldn't even get a signal in here, so we'll see how this goes. Again, SDR Sharp is free. So what you can see here is a bunch of the different modes. We've got narrow FM, AM, lower sideband, upper sideband. If you want to just get the raw data stream, you can do that. CW or Morse code. But let's just go ahead and click play. And let's see what we can pick up in here. Like what we're looking for. I don't know if you can hear that. But Pat Benatar hit me with your best shot. This is off the crappy antenna. So I have one that I listen to shortwave on, but if you look at this, what we've got is this waterfall here, and you can actually see the FM modulation coming across here. And so you can see you've got two different views there. And let's see what we can kind of find real quick. Depending on the radio station, it will actually decode the, if you've got one of the fancier, I think that's where we just were. Yep, that's still Pat. Let's go down. And if I hold this up just a certain way, you know, like little rabbit arrow.
There you go.
There it goes, see? Up country, that's evil. We're going to get up here. Satan's music. Hey, just saying. Just imagine if I hadn't tanked up on all that television noise. I couldn't talk earlier. We're not going to be able to pick up a lot, but if you've got the stereo, they give you the there we go. There. We can adjust the contrast if we want to, to try and make things stand out a little bit more. And a lot of them will display, just like on your stereo, will display the current artist and things like that. In some cities, you'll actually get traffic reports, things like that. This decodes that same signal. In the backup slides, Una, I'm going to try her last name, has decoded a lot of that and figured out the encoding behind it. But I'm told I've got 5 minutes, so again, I'm not putting you on the spot, but we do a hardware village next year. But in the 5 minutes that I have, any questions? Yes.
For that dongle there, I've been trying to research is there better antenna alternatives for us?
Yep. And actually, one of the things that you're going to end up with is, don't forget, and if you go out to buy a Hack RF, there'll be a link for that, but this essentially takes the connector from one of the dongles and converts it to SMA, which is standard for pretty much anything. And that's pretty much what you want to do, because from there, the one that's sitting there hanging out on my wall, actually, I just soldered a long wire to it, and I've got it's about 65 feet long wire, and it does a good job. Or just take a roach clip and clip to it and just take some wires. Hey honey, I bought some roach clips. Why? Oh, don't worry about it. I got this radio thing going on. In all honesty, I was, there were a bunch of microsats, satellite launches, a month ago when I was traveling, and I'd forgotten the little connector, and so I had my Fun Cube, which has an SMA connector, and I had a roach clip stuck in there. PSA has got to just love me, because I got to carry all this with me everywhere I go. And then I had just a piece of wire. There was a little construction site next door in a big old pile of stuff. So, just regular long wire, as long as you can get it. Just the cheap Radio Shack wire or whatever you got. It's the best. In fact, the best wire is if you've got some old Cat 5 cable, just grab some of it and just take one of the strings out, or one of the wires out of the Cat 5 cable.
And sorry, the B question was, can you? I haven't seen a lot of tutorials on decoding HDTV with that dongle. Is it still possible to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
You go out to the RTL SDR site, because one other thing on the Windows side is there is a product called virtual audio cable, where if you think about it, in the physical world, we would come out of the radio and then turn around and go into another device, maybe that would do some decoding or something like that. Well, now that everything's software-based, then with the virtual audio cable, you can actually set up virtual sound cards, virtual audio cables, and say go from this device to this device, go through this preprocessor, go through here. It's like $19. And then there's a free version out now too, and there's some other ways that folks have done it with some of the fancier sound cards and splitting the stereo and some other things like that. Send me a tweet and I'll send you the links, and in fact I'll make sure I get those on the backup slides too, and that link. Yes.
Let's just say the connector on the SDR is called MCX, is the connector type on that. So if you go on Amazon, you can find like MCX, SMA, or BNC, those little pigtails. They're about $10 a piece, and they will blow that default antenna that comes with it out of the water.
Yeah, I purposely used that one just to show you, but I've got all kinds of different lengths of size. The one that Mike uses for the Hack RF is a telescoping one that does a good job. But if you're going to get into the short waves, then you'll want to get some wire out there.
Jeff, you've got a giveaway down the podium.
Oh, hell.
Do you want to do a trivia question?
Okay, so how many fingers am I holding behind my hand?
0. 3. 2.
Okay, you said 2.
I did 2.
Okay.
What is it?
Alpha long range.
I'm sorry. Courtesy of Alpha Networks. Is there somebody from Alpha here?
No, I think that's an in-kind sponsoring gift they shipped to us.
Okay. Well, send them a nice note, please. Let me think. What does SDR stand for?
Software radio.
I'm sorry, I'm back. Okay, again, I'll have the slides up probably no later than midnight Sunday. I'm still adding. Guys sent me some more IRC links, but Reddit. There's a SDR and RTL SDR Reddit site that is actually a good place to keep your eyes out for stuff too. And then follow Mike Osman on Twitter. He's doing a lot of good stuff.
Great job, Jeff. Well, thanks again to Jeff, and thanks for you all for being here. This is the end of the Blue Track in this room. So the last talk of the day is going to be over in the big ballroom where we started this morning. So I have just a couple more no-start stickers. If anybody is interested, come on up and take them from me.
Is that the one with the cool?